Great. Good morning and welcome everyone to the May 3rd, 2023 Standard of Care Committee meeting. My name is Maria Serpa and I'm Vice Chairperson of this committee. Before we convene, I would like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing pharmacy law. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. This meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 11133. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. As I facilitate this meeting, I will announce when we are accepting public comment. I've advised the meeting moderator to allot 3 minutes to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting and to ensure the committee has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. I would like to ask staff moderating the meeting to provide general instructions to members of the public participating via WebEx. Moderator?
Hi, this is the moderator. Before we get started, I would like to remind that board and committee members and staff who are not speaking to please mute your microphone. If I detect any background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will mute that microphone. When public comment is requested, I will turn on the WebEx question and answer feature to facilitate this. Comments should be limited to the topic that is addressed on the specific agenda item. We will display instructions on the screen each time, and audience members may click on that question mark typically in the lower right-hand corner of their WebEx screen, type the word comment into the text box, and then click send for their request to be recognized. You may also choose to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom row of your computer's WebEx screen. Or if you're an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device to raise your hand. Each commenter will be invited to unmute themselves, and they will be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. At the end of that time, their microphone will then be muted, and we will move on to the next commenter. And I believe that is all the instructions that I have.
Great, thank you. I would now like to take a roll call to establish a quorum. Our committee chairperson, Sung Oh, and executive officer, Ann Sodergren, are unable to join us today. They're at the Capitol testifying on board business. So let us begin. Renee Barker.
Good morning, licensee member present.
Good morning. Indira Cameron Banks. I believe Indira wasn't sure if she was going to make it today. Jesse Crawley.
Licensee member present.
Good morning. Nicole Tebow.
Licensee member present.
Good morning. A quorum has been established. As we get started today, I would first like to say, on behalf of the committee and the board, thank you to everyone that has been involved with this work. We truly appreciate all the time of members and stakeholders have dedicated to this topic. We have learned so much from each other and shared ideas and different perspectives. As we continue our discussion today, I ask everyone participating to be respectful of the work before the committee. We encourage participation by members of the public through our meeting at appropriate times. The committee respectfully requests that when comments are provided, they are done so in a professional manner consistent with how the committee conducts its business. I apologize. I have a crowd here. Just a second. Give me a moment and I'll try to be a little more quiet. Apologies, we'll continue on. Moderator, let me know if there is background noise. I will work harder on that. Okay, I will now open the meeting for public comments for items not on the agenda. I'd like to remind members of the public that you're not required to identify yourself, but may do so. I would also like to remind everyone that the committee cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place the item on a future agenda. Members, following public comment for this agenda item, I will ask you for comment on what, if any, should be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, this agenda item is not intended to be a discussion, rather an opportunity for members of the committee and members of the public to request consideration for an item for future placement on an agenda, which at that time discussion may occur. Moderator, we're ready for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do, thank you. Since we had no public comment, we'll continue on to the first agenda item, which is number 3, the discussion and consideration and approval of draft committee meeting minutes from February 1st, 2023. Attachment 1 of the meeting materials includes the draft meeting minutes from our February 1st, 2023 meeting. Members, I welcome your comments on the draft minutes and would entertain a motion to approve if you believe such action is appropriate. I do have one change before opening up to members, and that would be on the last page. And I believe we have staff also listening, Debbie. The last page, first paragraph, the example given under EG says universal health. I believe that should say access to electronic health records. Debbie, do you have that?
My apologies. Yes, I do have that. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that one change, members, do you have any other comments or questions, or I'd be willing to take a motion?
Hi, Maria. It's Nicole. I am motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole has a motion. Do we have a second or any comments?
Hi, Maria. It's Jessie. I'll second her motion.
Thank you, Jessie. With the motion and second on the floor, I'll now open for public comment. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment on the meeting minutes.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And it looks like we do have a request from Rita Shane. Rita, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Jane Cedars-Sinai. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a comment. I did want to comment once again on sterile compounding as a standard of care potential integration. The reason for that is
I'm sorry, Dr. Shane, we're discussing the meeting minutes at this point.
It was in the minutes.
It's in the minutes. What section, what page? Can you direct us?
Oh gosh, I looked at them about 10 minutes ago. My apologies. Do you want me to, why don't I mute myself and I'll come back and comment because I don't want to waste the committee's time, if that would be acceptable to you. I did look at it.
Here.
Pardon?
We'll have just a moment here because unless we have additional comments, we won't be staying here long. But I'll give you a minute to look for the section.
I know.
Are there other comments that we can go to while Dr. Shane is looking for hers?
This is the moderator. There are doesn't appear to be any further comments for public comment. Would you like me to give Dr. Shane a couple moments to?
We'll give her a moment. I mean, we have 3 minutes for her to
You know what? I would prefer not to, out of respect for the committee and its deliberations, I will figure out how to integrate my comment in another section of the discussion. It was in the minutes, which is what prompted me. But again, I have to go pull it up and that could take me a minute and a half of the 3 minutes I have. So out of respect for the process, I'm going to mute myself and I'll come back when it's appropriate to comment.
Okay, thank you. So the minutes are correct. You just wanted to add to it. Is that your comment? I just wanted to make sure the minutes are correct before we vote.
Dr. Shane, if you'd, because you muted yourself, if you could raise your hand if you wanted to respond that the minutes were correct, or if you wanted to add comments to it. Okay, minutes are correct. All right. In that case, because there are no further comments for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you. So
All right.
members, hearing public comment, I believe that maybe Dr. Shane may have additional testimony during our next agenda item that we can consider that, but she did indicate, at least through the moderator, the minutes are correct. I'll take a roll call vote unless you have any comments or questions. Okay. Renee Barker,
Yes.
thank you. Jesse Crawley,
Yes.
Nicole Thibault,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes, motion passes. Agenda item 4, discussion and consideration of draft legislative report regarding assessment of the standard of care enforcement model in the practice of pharmacy. Members, since March of 2022, we have received presentations, learned about actions taken in other jurisdictions, reviewed research, surveyed pharmacists, and considered policy questions. As I stated in my opening remarks, the committee and board truly appreciate everyone's participation in this process. In this process, today we will review the updated draft for the legislative report that incorporate the changes that were requested at our last meeting in February. As was shared during our discussion at that time, we realized that for some time this report may seem, let me start that over again because this is an important point. We've shared this at previous meetings, I want to share it again. We realize that this report may seem to go too far and for others not far enough. As we complete our review of the final draft, I intend to open up for public comment throughout the meeting as we discuss the various portions of the report. Members, before we begin, I'd like to ensure everyone has received the public comments that were disseminated on Monday. I'll look for your head nods. Good. These comments are also posted on the board's website. Members, do you have any questions on the process before we begin our review? Okay. Attachment 2 is the updated draft report. Changes from the prior version are identified as underlined to reflect new text and strike through reflecting text that's being removed. I also note that there are formatting changes made. Members, the first section of our review is background and information provided about pharmacy profession. Members, do you have any comments on these two sections? That's background or information about pharmacy profession. I'm comfortable with the changes that we have on the draft report, and seeing you have no comments, let's go to public comment. Moderator, we're ready for public comment on the two sections, background and information on the pharmacy profession.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. And it appears we do have a request for comment from Daniel Robinson. Daniel, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I'm not going to need 3 minutes at all. There's just some added text that was put into the pharmacy profession section.
Mm-hmm.
There's about halfway down the first paragraph or so, there's a comment that says, over the last decade, the permanent scope of practice for pharmacists. I don't understand why the word permanent is in there. Nothing is really permanent, so I would just suggest striking that term.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do, thank you. Members, do you have any additional comment before we move on to the next section? Okay, the next section is an overview of the committee's process and presentations received, reflecting comments we received as a part of our review of the prior draft. Members, do you have any comments on these two sections? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for public comment on the sections that are committee process and presentations received.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, and it looks like Daniel Robinson would like to make a comment. And Daniel, once again, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you once again. In the section on presentation on standard of care provided by the Department of Consumer Affairs, I just want to point out that there's a clear contradiction between what the statements from the Department of Consumer Affairs say in terms of anyone who violates a statute is in violation of standard of care, and yet in the Board of Medicine presentation, they make a clear statement that the standard of care does not reflect laws and statutes. It's really
this is the moderator. I apologize, Daniel Robinson. I'm hearing that there is an echo on your end, and it's a bit hard to hear. Is it possible that you can either get closer to your mic or maybe put on a pair of headphones? I paused your timer.
So let me try that again. The Department of Consumer Affairs statement states that it's a violation of any violation of rules or regulation or statutes is a violation of standard of care. But under the medical board, when we heard that presentation, they said that is clearly not the case. So we really have conflicting issues here. Standard of care really deals with decisions related to the practice of pharmacy and providing direct patient care, not a violation of rules or regulations. So I just wanted to point that out, that we have two conflicting opinions that have been presented to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do. Members, any further comment on this section? Okay, moving on to information on other jurisdictions and research reviewed. During our prior discussion, no changes were recommended in these sections. Members, I would like to confirm that you believe that the content is still appropriate. Okay, let's open up for public comment, and this would be on the sections information on jurisdictions and research reviewed.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and see none. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do, thank you. And as noted, that section had no other changes since our February meeting. Let's move on to the next section. I believe that's definitions. Definitions is a new section, was added based on our prior discussion. I do appreciate the inclusion of definitions and believe that they are appropriate and helpful. This section is very helpful to help explain the use of these terms that we refer to in our final recommendations. Members, do you have any questions or comments on the definitions section? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator and at the direction of the committee. I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it does look like we have a request for comment from Stephen Gray. One moment while I find you the attendees. Okay, and Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
As noted in the additional materials that were supplied by Dan Robinson and I, we both feel that the use of the hybrid model term is not well understood. I realize that it is defined in this definition section, but my experience has been over the years that especially when you have a long report, often readers don't go back to the definition. So what I have included in my additional materials is a simple one-sentence statement that tries to capture the essence of what you're saying for the definition. And so I just want to point out that we were aware of that hybrid enforcement model definition now included in the report, which I commend. But please look at that one sentence statement. I found when testing the recommendation sections with other pharmacists even, that they didn't understand with it. And again, as you often know, people jump right to the end of reports to find out, well, okay, fine, what are you recommending? So I would suggest that when we get to that section on recommendations, we take another look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please do, thank you. Members, during our prior meeting, we had significant discussion on some of the policy questions, which is the next section of the report for our review. As was stated during the last meeting, the intent of our discussion today is not to rediscuss the issues, but to confirm if the summary information is accurate. I believe the updated information is correct. I appreciate the knowledge incorporated to provide context, especially in the updated responses to questions number 8 and number 11. Members, do you have any thoughts or comments on the updates on the policy questions portion of the report?
Hi, Maria. This is Nicole. I just wanted to comment that I thought the staff did such a good job on this when I was reading it and remembering how complex the discussions were and how well they put it together and got a concise answer. So I just thought we needed to mention how good of a job they did on this section.
Thank you. And I think we can, all the members and President O, who's the chair of our committee, would echo those comments. There are many, many hours done behind the scenes to help us prepare for these meetings. Any other member comments? I think we're ready for public comment. And this is again, let me just repeat as a reminder, this is not about new discussion on policy or new questions. This is about whether the summary of the report captures the discussion. As was stated during the last meeting and consistent with the draft report, a full transcript from each of the meetings is provided as an attachment to this report for interested readers who want to review the details of each of the discussions. Moderator, we're ready for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A locate the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. Right now, it looks like we do have a couple requests for comment, so I'm going to go in the order they were received. First, we have Daniel Robinson. Daniel, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. If you refer to question 4, the question is really an either-or question. It talks about 2 different options for the board to consider, and the answer
I
gives...
apologize, Daniel. It sounds like there's still an echo on your end. Is it possible that maybe you can move rooms that you're in, or possibly put on headphones?
I'll come back. I'll try to get
Okay.
a headphone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In that case, while we're waiting, I'll move on to our next individuals and I'll loop back with Mr. Robinson. Okay, so next we have Keith Yoshizuka. And Keith, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Society of Health System Pharmacists. This is very minor. On question number 11, I believe you have a typo in the answer. It says many businesses, including medial practices. I believe that should say medical. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator. Next we have Lisa Kroon. And Lisa, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hi, Lisa Kroon, faculty at the UCSF School of Pharmacy. My comment is around question 5 and the answer. I'm just concerned about the current language of to expand or change scope of practice. Standard of care model really isn't expanding scope of practice, is what it says later, that it's about allowing pharmacists to utilize their full range of training and skills. So I just worry about having that in the record for CMA or others to see this quote expanding scope of practice. So I'm just concerned that that could prohibit our ability to get the standard of care model through. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and it appears that Daniel Robinson now has a headphone. So Daniel, I'll be requesting to unmute your microphone. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
So I'm doing a sound check. Does this work?
Yes, sounds much better.
Okay, thank you. On question number 4, the question is really an either or question. There's 2 options that are given there, and the answer says yes, but that really doesn't seem appropriate. So either you believe in the first part of that statement or the second part of the statement. You can't agree with both of them. So you just might have the staff look at that again and see if that can be handled in a different way. And then if you get to question 7, this is regarding minimum requirements for training and education. The board clearly establishes criteria for licensure, but probably should not be involved in establishing criteria for specialization or certifications or things of that sort. The profession does that and does a very good job of that. And it just seems to me to be way beyond the scope of the Board of Pharmacy. So if the board could focus on what is appropriate criteria for licensure, then health providers with licenses will work with other agencies to make sure that they are certified and in their various specialties. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual is Rita Shane. And Rita, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. I wanted to revisit or clarify question number 4, where there is a reference to compounding it does not appear appropriate to allow additional pharmacist discretion beyond current provisions. I would respectfully want to discuss this. The sterile compounding standards, USP 797 and the associated 800 have been vetted extensively over the last several years and are quite comprehensive and have actually enhanced monitoring of both individuals and facilities to support safe sterile compounding. Additional requirements actually serve as a barrier to sterile compounding and acute care health systems, which, by the way, are running over census in almost every hospital in the state of California, are faced with the need to ensure timely, safe compounding. The increased requirements actually support more outsourcing. A review of 483s on the FDA websites demonstrates that almost every single facility to this compounding, and specifically ones that are used by California pharmacies that do undergo a state board inspection, we know that all of these have to be licensed in California. However, that being said, nothing replaces responsibility of the acute healthcare setting where there is not only responsibility by the PIC, annual licensure, and ongoing observations and direct supervision of staff. There is nothing that replaces that sort of scrutiny to ensure that USP standards are followed. And by increasing the regulatory requirements as opposed to taking a standard of care approach, which would be adoption of USP 797 and 800, actually creates an impetus for outsourcing to organizations that have recalls. CAPS just had recalls. I looked up I actually scrolled through all the 483s before this meeting, and it is frightening to me how many 483s deal with aseptic technique. So although these are all licensed by the state board, and we respect that, the ongoing supervision of aseptic technique and conformance with USP 797, both the previous and planning for the new USP 797, is much more closely observed at a much lower BUD, posing much less risk of contamination and risk to our patients. So I would like to at least provide my thoughts about using a standard of care to support the adoption of national guidelines for sterile compounding and not creating additional barriers to acute care health systems that are treating exceedingly high census of patients who need injectables.
10 seconds.
The ACORN recall of included injectables, oftentimes recalls require more compounding. And again, any additional requirements are a barrier, especially given the national technician workforce shortages.
Thank you. Moderator, are there any other questions?
All right. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do. Members, do you have any further comments on the policy questions?
Hi, Maria. This is Jessie. I actually do agree with the comment on question 4 that there are 2 questions posed there. And so I probably would suggest the removal of yes in that first part and just leave it as is with that additional, the added sentence at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And also agree with the typo in the answer for question 11, that should be medical purposes.
Yes, I agree with both those points, and we'll add them to the, I think we're going to have a few other items that we'll add to the end of our committee meeting to review those additional comments. Thank you for pointing those out.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Debbie. I was wondering, Jessie, if you could just reiterate your comments. You agree with the comments on question 4 with the removal of yes. And then was it to delete the last sentence of question 4 as well?
Oh, no. Leave the last sentence of question 4. Just delete the yes. Mm-hmm.
Delete, yes. Thank you so much. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem, Debbie. Her other comment was to agree with the typo correction in question 11.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see, we're on to discussion of recommendations. The recommendation portion of the report have made some changes, and I appreciate the changes that are made to this portion of the report. I believe they were consistent with our prior discussion and are providing necessary clarification. Members, this is where we had our written comments. And specific to the written comments, I would like to note that the comments that were provided by 2 individuals but were offered on 1 submission. The language offered by Emeritus Dean Robinson may provide more clarity and could be considered as additional edits if other members also are comfortable with that recommended language. However, I do not agree with the changes offered by Dr. Steve Gray. The report terms offered in bold font are specifically done as a reference to terms previously defined in the report. So you heard his testimony also talk about the definitions and why he wanted to make changes in this section in addition to the definitions. I believe that additional clarifying language is inconsistent and is not needed in this section, that we should just remain with what the definitions state. Members, do you have any thoughts or comments on this on the updates to this section, the recommendations portion of the report? Okay, I think we're ready for public comment on this section.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. And it appears we have a request for comment from Mark Johnston. Mark, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the Unmute Me button when the prompt appears on your device.
This is Mark Johnston from CVS Health. In the recommendations, it says that California patients will benefit from pharmacists gaining additional independent authority to provide patient care services not limited to the traditional dispensing tasks performed at a licensed facilities, consistent with their respective education, training, and experience. Further, the board recommends revisions to certain provisions detailing a pharmacist's authorized scope of practice for specified clinical patient care services. This is not consistent with the board's vote last week to not support SB 524. SB 524 is exactly that, an expanded practice bill that would allow test and treat for COVID and influenza and strep and conjunctivitis. And the board voted not to support that measure. So this is in direct conflict. So I suggest that you either revisit your recommendation or revisit your support for SB 524. At the time of the vote for SB 524, I said that it was a historic moment where the California board did not support expanded pharmacist practice, and there would be implications that came from that vote, and this is one of them. So to avoid a conflict, I mean, the legislature asked you for this report. This report goes to the legislature. The legislature is currently considering SB 524, which has made it out of committee. This is the board is going to look as though they are speaking out of both sides of their mouth with this recommendation. So I suggest that you revisit your support of SB 524. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual who has requested public comment, Keith Yoshizuka. And Keith, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the Unmute Me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. Keith Yoshizuka, California Society of Health System Pharmacists. This is in reference to the last comment. AB 524 was amended as a means of getting out of committee. And as such, there's no longer any treat in the test and treat legislation. All it says is test. And the amendment removed all the ability for pharmacists to treat. So at this point, I don't think that any change in the board's position is warranted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you. Members, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Before we leave this section, Jesse, I think you probably are going to answer the question that I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if I was going to answer that question, but just looking over the submitted recommendations from Dr. Robinson, I did want to note that there was a cross out from the word could in the last sentence where it says, under those conditions, the board believes that transitioning to a greater use of standard of care model would benefit. I disagree with that. I think based off of the discussions we've had throughout all of our meetings, we did conclude that it could rather than would. And therefore, I believe the original word could is more appropriate in the recommendation.
Good point. That's a good point. I knew that we were going to have a lot of discussion on what is the definition of could versus would. But other than that, do you feel that his recommended edits are appropriate for us to include other than that one word, or what do the board members think?
Yeah, I think other than that edit, I think the only other one was the addition of the sentence that says utilize professional judgment in making patient care decisions, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Any other comments on this section, members? Okay, moving on to next steps. You will know that this section of the report is also new and added based on our prior discussion. I agree with the information as detailed, but welcome your thoughts, committee members, on this new section. Next steps. Seeing none, I think we're ready for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. All right, it looks like we have a request for comment from Susan Bonilla. And Susan, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
The California Pharmacists Association. I want to thank the committee and the staff for their thoughtful and really diligent work on this entire shift and move towards standard of care. I appreciated the next steps portion and felt that was a wonderful addition to also put in a bit of a timeline there of moving to some kinds of determinations by the end of this calendar year, and also really appreciated the engagement suggested with the California Department of Healthcare Services, Insurance, and Managed Care to look at the issues around removing barriers to reimbursement for healthcare services provided. CPHA is very interested in continuing to collaborate and work with the board on and these other departments on removing those barriers. I think identifying that as a key element to the success of standard of care was a really excellent next step to have included. Thank you very much for your work, and we continue to look forward to working with you throughout this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, our next individual who has requested public comment, Daniel Robinson. And Daniel, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. I also want to add and commend the board for the next steps. It's very encouraging. If you go to the very last sentence of the paragraph, there's a phrase at the very end I don't quite understand. It says, well, that sentence, what actions may be necessary to remove barriers to reimbursement for healthcare services provided by pharmacists rather than other healthcare providers. I don't quite understand. I don't believe that adds anything to your next statement. So the phrase "rather than other healthcare providers" does not seem to be needed to me. If you find that helpful, I would recommend that change. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do. Thank you. Members, any additional comments on the next step section? I believe that the last comment on that last sentence may be a good discussion area for us to have during the full board meeting, because I think the intent may be there to be about pharmacy services in addition to those current. And I think that may not be met by the words that are actually there. If read by a third party, it doesn't really explain, I think, the intent of that sentence. And perhaps staff could work on a better wording to present to us. I see Renee's hands up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to, I guess, maybe echo that, but for the comment from Dan Robinson, that, you know, I mean, it does stand out now that it's been pointed out, but perhaps something like in addition to other healthcare providers, if it was to remain, or I'm not sure it is necessary kind of clause at the end, but I would agree that maybe open up to other discussion at the full board meeting might be good.
Thank you. Members, any other comments on the next step section? Okay. I wanted to acknowledge the acknowledgement section of the report. This gives formal recognition to all who have participated in this process. The attachments to the report are including the transcripts from all the committee meetings, which is all the details. Members, do you have any comments on the acknowledgement or attachment sections? I think we're ready for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. And audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3 on their device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Please do, thank you. Members, as we finalize our review, I would like to give you an opportunity for final comments. I would also like to provide, after your final comments in this section, a summary of the issues for further discussion. We will be, just to give you some background, we'll be considering the final draft report as a part of the May board meeting later in this month. So we will be seeing this again in May at the full board meeting. We're not going to be offering a board recommendation, but we'll be presenting it and hopefully having a few more slight additions based on our comments that we received today, which I would like to summarize. But I wanted to hear your comments first, and then I'll give you a summary of what I think we need to address as potential edits. Members, any additional comments other than what we've heard about? Okay, I'm going to go through the list, and then if I miss anything, let me know. I'm going to look through my notes. It will take me a second here. I think the first one was a typo. I'm trying to make sure we don't miss anything here. So yes, so it looks like the first one was policy question number 4, to remove the word yes in the answer, but we feel that the rest of the paragraph is appropriate. So that would be for question number 4. for question number 11 to correct the typo to medical practices. In the recommendations section, to add the phrase by Dean Robinson, but not change the word to would. It would maintain the word could in that section. And then finally, consider rewording the last sentence in the next step section to provide the intent. And let me just kind of summarize what I think the intent was. The intent was that that we would want to remove barriers for reimbursement for healthcare services provided by pharmacists. That would include those current and those that will be coming in the future, not just limited to those that are current. Members, is that an adequate summary for us for our board meeting on a couple weeks from now? As I said, there's no need to vote as we will consider the report at the May board meeting and provide opportunity for the full board to provide comments. Since this is a very important report, the full board will have input based on our work. So we do not have a committee recommendation. I want to thank everyone. I appreciate everyone's input, and the chair and I will work with staff to finalize the formatting and ensure that those changes that we listed are appropriately incorporated. As I adjourn the meeting today, on behalf of Sung Oh, our committee chair and board president, I'd like to thank everyone for your participation through this process. This again will be the final meeting of this ad hoc committee. I truly appreciate the engagement of everyone. The board and staff will work to determine next steps based on the direction of the legislature. Future work in this area will be completed through the licensing committee. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and effort today and over this last couple of years. Have a great day.